Hello and welcome to Required Viewing, a very special episode of Required Viewing because tonight we are going to marry art and football through our special guest, Aaron Evans, a former NFL player and full-time artist extraordinaire. Welcome to the show. How's it going, Aaron?
It's great to be here, man. I'm great. I'm doing great. I'm thrilled, elated to be here.
Awesome. And Kyle, welcome back from the African savannah. How was your trip?
Oh, blimey out! Hickinus, get off me, mother! You know what? The African savannah was sure as hell easier than waking up at 4:45 to drive to Jacksonville and back. But you know what? I had a good time doing both. What can I say?
We've already talked about Mickey Mouse with Mickey's Christmas Carol. We talked about Donald Duck, Nazi Donald Duck in Der Fuhrer's face. It's about time that we talk about Goofy. Today we'll be covering how to play football from 1944. I guess it's not just one Goofy. He plays every single character in this piece. This is an orgy of goofs. But it's an entertaining one, nevertheless.
Enough about Congress.
So I know that Kyle has already seen this because we've actually included clips from this. And one of our very first YouTube ventures, Sports Symposium, we were talking about the different types of quarterbacks, field generals, gunslingers, etc. Oddly enough, Goofy's How to Play Football was pretty much on the money with some of those concepts. I'm sure we'll be talking more about that later in the episode. But was this the first time you've ever seen this short cartoon, Aaron?
I have heard of it in the past, and I've seen snippets of it. But yes, this is the first time I'd watched the whole thing through. It's so clever, and it's so well done.
Having played the game, what is your takeaway from this? How accurate is this to reality?
I love the dynamics and the exaggerations of those dynamics that they could portray in the film. Like with the coaches who are just screaming, and they're smoking. And especially for that time era, the coaches smoked and everything. And the locker room is full of smoke. And like they're worried about the game and they're not worried about their athletes. And I thought that was a funny dynamic. I thought it was hilarious how they're praising the quarterback like he's the best thing that since sliced bread. And as soon as he messes up, they're like, he's the worst quarterback in the world. I can't believe it. And I just love that because it shows it is playing on how fickle the sporting world is. And it's so true. It's so true.
It's amazing how much the satire is still on point today, because when you think about this short, this short was released in 1944 during World War II.
Yeah, I know. It's wild that it's still so accurate.
If not more so, right? I mean, because you mentioned a lot of the hyperbole and the changing of the winds. Like, listen, Demos mentioned the Gunslingers, Field Generals, and Game Managers episode, which I really still wish had a shorter title. But hey, what can I say? It was an earlier project. Like the game manager element, where players who are game managers, it's now like a curse word practically. So, hey, he did something wrong. What a dumb quarterback.
What a dumb quarterback.
I mean, it was perfect from where I sat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It was very accurate. Really, it was. And I loved just how they caught the movement. It was cool how they had like the turf move under his feet and pull himself into the end zone, or just how ridiculous some of the moments are in football. Some of the moments, like how big the linemen are, and exaggerating that, and like how he's getting just crushed and the chaos and all of it. It was awesome.
But I think that's one of the things I do love about this short, and probably it's indicative of the success of the Goofy how-to shorts. There are quite a number of them. Is that their satire? The satire was based on reality, exaggerated reality. It's very, very different than a lot of the spoofs and what passes for satire nowadays. This is intelligently written and stretched to such a hyperbole that it's funny. As Kyle used to love to say, it's funny because it's true.
It's funny because it's true.
Absolutely.
Listen, hyperbole is the key to it, right? And I mean, the joke I want to make is the one part talking about the well-oiled machine where the linemen's butts are like moving up and down in unison. Can't be a well-oiled machine and have that many false start penalties. I'm just saying. But But the side note there, I mean, I think it's a lot of the undertones. I mean, Aaron said it as well. Actually, while we were talking about leading up to it, the comment I think that was made is a lot of these intricacies and the cleverness could be missed if you're not paying the right attention. And that subtlety where it doesn't slap you in the face. There have been other required viewing episodes where movies have not made the required viewing mark because it's spoon feeding. You don't have that here. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And something that, I mean, when people think of Disney, they think, it has to be for children. It has to be for children. This is indicative of an earlier type of Disney that wasn't necessarily aimed at kids. So a lot of the jokes and a lot of the undercurrent in this particular short is not aimed for a 5 or 6 year old. This is aimed for adults and adults who watch American football. How many other shorts are you going to see Goofy smoking like 7 cigars at the same time?
I love it. He's so stressed out, and he's got more and more.
There's another one I can think of.
I don't Goofy vaping, boss.
Does he have a beanie?
He should.
God. Well, they're saving that for Kingdom Hearts 4. You know?
Oh, God.
Kingdom Hearts. Oh.
Since I do have 2 football experts on this show, I want to ask, what did this short, if it did get anything wrong, what did it get wrong?
It got wrong how chaotic it is. I mean, it was exaggerating the absolute carnage of it so much. I don't think that's accurate. Football is really artful. I think, especially as offensive linemen, I feel like offensive line play, if refined further, could be almost karate, so to speak. It's very artful, like the technique on all the stuff the players do. It's not just meatheads smashing into each other. It is highly skilled biomechanical movements. It's crazy what these men are doing at such a high level, with the impacts, with the torque their bodies go into, with the stress and all of it. It's amazing. And I think that and I get it, they're making fun and everything, but I disagree with that.
That's an interesting concept, Aaron, because in the movie Replacements with Keanu Reeves playing Footsteps Falco at the quarterback position, Shane Falco, one of the guys that Gene Hackman brings in as coach Jimmy McGinty is a sumo wrestler. You mentioned martial art. I would submit that martial art exists to the next level of line play in sumo.
I think sumo should be implemented more into the training protocols for offensive linemen because of the grounding aspects of it, the relationship with the hips and your feet. It's crazy. It's really important. Sumo wrestlers also, their body fat percentage, even though they look like they do, they're very lean. Like, they're tanks. And that's another thing I think we've lost, maybe not so much in the NFL, but in college, like overweight linemen. But anyways, that's another whole nother
separate episode I'm picking up. But well, hey, listen, make a note, send an email to Coach Reed and Coach Peterson, and they'll work with that, right?
Why not? They'll probably say, blow off. Get away from me.
One last thing I do want to point out about how to play football, and I think I mentioned this during my recommendation for Major League, about how much I enjoyed the sports casting in that movie. It was hilarious. It was in many ways one of the most enjoyable aspects of that film. But if there's one piece of media out there that I feel competes as far as sports casting, it's Goofy How to Play Football.
Swivel Hip Smith, that great All-American star, triple threat scat back. Look at him go. They can't touch him. He can really carry the mail, that boy. Look at that open field run. Look at that straight arm. He's away, and he's over for a touchdown. Well, it isn't often you see this happen. 105 yards to a touchdown on the opening kickoff.
It is witty, it is dynamic, it is freaking hilarious, it is, and to be honest, I'd love to see if somebody played a prank and just took the audio and just threw it in the middle of a broadcasting football game, just to see how people would have reacted. It would have been like the War of the Worlds, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds hoax.
They probably wouldn't have even noticed.
I could see Tony Romo saying, "What a dumb quarterback."
Line, a man in motion, the halfback's got it off tackle, and he's smeared for a 9-yard loss. What a dumb quarterback.
So, Kyle, you have experience in sportscasting. Tell us, how on the nose was that?
So I haven't called a game officially yet, other than the one for the Rage, where the broadcast had to be thrown away because I was sharing the press box with the coaching staff, who every third word had an F and 4 letters behind it. And I'm not talking about foul. But No, there's a lot of stuff there that's solid. And I mean, listen, the whole reason why I got into covering sport, to eventually cross paths with Mr. Aaron here is on the essence of the fact that so many people get it bleeding wrong, you know, and I don't mean just in that visceral, you know, art form kind of wrong where somehow this world still spins with people liking pineapple on pizza. I mean, like, their facts are bleeding wrong.
Is Goofy How to Play Football required viewing?
So I know that this is something that I've been going to, and you can call it bias if you want, as the creator of this topic recently. But I can make a damn strong argument for, while I wouldn't say it's required reviewing, it belongs in a museum, simply on the strength of the fact that we're talking, like, I didn't know it was in the 40s. The fact that they're referencing Leatherheads in there isn't some device for satire. No, these cats were still wearing leather damn helmets.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well,
they were goofy.
They were indeed goofy. And so were the helmets. But the point is this. As a device for what football was, and seeing that it still holds that true, I can definitely make it belongs in a museum. It's clearly the choice here. But if for those who aren't happy with that, it's recommended, but not required. But I would say required for those that are consider themselves to be football fans. They may not catch all the nuance, but what they focus on, they will see, and perhaps they'll be more inclined to look at themselves in the mirror before they analyze players. I'm just saying.
I concur, but I would say it's required, especially as a football fan, especially as a player. It gives a nice satire to all the intensity of the sport. I think it's important to cut your palate with something like that. It's nice to balance it out. I would say it gives you another insight into the dynamics on the field and what's happening. And I know it's satirical, but there is some truth in it. And I think it's fun to play on that. And I think it's important to have a well-balanced perception of things. So I would say required.
All right. It's not a secret on the show that when it comes to certain film genres, sports films are at the bottom of my list. There's nothing against sports or anything. It's just I've never really gotten into a majority of sports films out there. Not to say that there aren't any good ones. You know, I can think of at least one film that I've recommended on this show.
Mark, required because you're a heathen.
But when I was a kid and I first saw How to Play Football, I was actually kind of hoping that it would kind of unravel the mystery of what football was, because even as a kid I had trouble trying to figure out what it was. Every time I watched the game, there was some unheard of rule that I never knew existed that changed the whole dynamic, and I always was out of it. And so I'm like sitting down, I'm like, okay, Goofy, teach me something. And what happens? They do share a lot of great information, except it's drowned out as a joke.
Now the object of the game is to advance the ball over the goal line of the opposing team by hook or crook. There are 11 men on either team, 2 ends, and that's how the game is played.
And that's how the game is played. You son of a bitch. Anyway,
hey, that's how Americans feel about soccer. It's all right.
Why do you think I've been calling it this American football this whole time? Honestly, as far as anything football related, and once again, I'm not the biggest sports film guy in the world, but as far as football in media, that's not a documentary or anything like that, this is probably the favorite that I've run across so far. It is hilarious, it is funny, it is witty. There is no better sports hero in animation than Goofy. The dexterity and the crazy versatility of the character and the design is perfect to land him in these sports scenarios. I agree with Kyle in this case wholeheartedly. Not only does it belong in a museum, it is highly recommended, but I wouldn't go as far as to say it's required. If you're a sports fan, if you want to see a great example of how to effectively tell a comedic, more or less, sports story in film history, if you want to see what football was like during World War II,
all right,
animated football during World War II, You can't get any better than Goofy How to Play Football. Very much recommended. Maybe a hair short of required for me. There are definitely some other Goofy shorts I think are better than this, but I think the praise goes all the way around the board. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us tonight. One more time, where can we find you, buddy?
We can find me at @aevans_art on Instagram, @aevans_66 on Twitter. My other Instagram handle is king_frog1111. My website is king-frog.com. That's where you can find me. Those are all my channels.
Awesome. And Kyle, where can we find you, buddy?
Of course, you can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram as the SOTG as well. Find me on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my writings on UCF for the upcoming season at sportsmediapass.com.
Awesome. And of course, you can find me on hilaritybydefault.com. Fun stuff practically every day. On Twitter at defaulthilarity, and on Facebook and Instagram, Hilarity by Default. Let us know. Do you want us to cover more Disney animated shorts? Do you want us to cover more of the Goofy How-To series? How did you feel about How to Play Football? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, check us out right here. Subscribe where life is hilarious by default.